And that's a big piece in fighting, is being able to adapt to make what you're doing work.
Hello, my name is Jamie Sparling, and I am the head instructor of Affinity Martial Arts and Wellness in Wausau, Wisconsin. Welcome to the FormAble Podcast. And at the FormAble Podcast, we talk about formable moments in martial arts training and formable moments in the lives of martial artists. Today, I have with me, and this is a very big deal for me. This gentleman is in my town. He's in Wausau, Wisconsin. He has a gym called Rising Sun MMA, SON, right? And so Rising Sun MMA here in Wisconsin, in Wausau, Wisconsin, is I'm gonna say the best MMA gym. All right, we don't do the same thing, so I could say that, right? Right. So
We're the only ones, so
yeah, the best MMA gym here in Wausau. He's got high level athletes, and he also is a very interesting man. And when I first moved to Wausau, Wisconsin, I went in to kind of check out different instructors. And when I did, you know what brought me to you, Master Thao, to check you out first?
yeah, no.
Spiritual development.
Oh, okay, okay.
Right. My first Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instructor, his name is Justin Morris, and I had him on the show, and he kind of got me to like go to church a little bit, right? You know, and then afterwards we would do jiu-jitsu, right? And so that like created a habit at times in my life, and really introduced me up back into like church culture,
Mm-hmm.
and I was bowled over when I saw your class,
Mm-hmm.
spiritual development. All right,
Mm-hmm.
Master Tao. First of all, could you tell me, before we get to spiritual development, could you tell us a little bit about your martial arts background?
Sure, and you can just call me La. So
Okay, all right, you
yeah,
got it.
yeah,
I'll do my best. All right. However, I really do believe if someone has like achieved the master of anything in the culture we have today, that they should get a little bit of respect, right? Because
yeah.
a master basket weaver can show you the cool. You might not even like baskets, but you're in front of a master. It's a different gig. You know what I mean?
Sure, sure.
All
Yeah.
right.
But we all are, and we're all beginners at different things too.
Yes,
So,
brother.
just, but yeah, all good. So, La is perfectly fine. So,
I
no
appreciate
worries
it.
that way. But yeah, we've been, Rising Sun started in 2009. And so the reason it started was because we wanted to open up we're in Wausau, right?
Yeah.
There's not a lot of, there's more bars than martial arts studios. So,
Unfortunately, yes.
uh,
Yes.
yeah, and so when I was growing up, there wasn't really anything but like some taekwondo, some karate, and then there wasn't like no boxing. Those you didn't have all that fun stuff in the big cities had. So I learned that I wanted to open up a martial arts school down the road. I didn't know when, but and I didn't know I was going to do it this early. But I wanted to learn first and kind of give back in that way. But throughout life, and things happened in such a way where I had an opportunity to run a gym and
Mm-hmm.
then eventually open up my own gym. And so, when we did it, I also talked with our pastor at church. I'm like, hey, can I use this as a ministry tool, like to help people with Christianity? And he's like, man, God uses people in all kinds of ways. So I'm like,
Yes.
go for it. So I already thought about the name for the last couple years before we opened, and so I knew the name like years before, just timing. And then I knew that I wanted to, like, Wednesday night, like a main time when we should be having a class. We do a free spiritual development class, and it's free forever. I could be making money during that time and running a class, but we do it as a spiritual growth, and we've been faithful to that too. And God's been using that time really well for us as well. There's been all kinds of people throughout the years who come during that time for a season in their life, and it's helped them in a lot of different ways. So I'm still helping. So it's been, so in that aspect, it's been wonderful.
That's absolutely amazing. And I've been to that class. I was just talking to my wife the other day about the 6 p.m. time slot.
Hmm.
And I never realized or put any thought into how you did give one of the best time slots in all of the gym to spiritual development for free.
Hmm. Yeah,
That was part of your strategy, right?
yeah, absolutely. That was, I mean, we got to give the Lord, good Lord, like different, our best, right? And so
Yeah.
it's a valuable time, and we could use it to make money, but instead we're investing in people's lives, and which is most important. I mean, at the end of the day, they can learn how to punch and kick, but if they become better human beings, then the gym did its job. So, not that we're training warriors to defend, we got military and all that kind of stuff, but if I can help someone change their life and they become better in some kind of way, shape, or form, then
Mm-hmm.
the gym, then it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a family-run business, Rising Sun. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. My wife helps me. She's the co-owner. She helps coach the classes. She helps, coach the professional fighters, get fights on all the background kind of stuff. She's helping me coach our team when we go up to nationals in a couple of weeks here.
Great.
My daughters are involved in the classes, so they help teach our Taekwondo program. So they help out. We have some awesome coaches like Coach Kyle and Scott and Michael, who help out run our jujitsu program, and they're wonderful as well. So it's definitely family. It's not a one man gig, so it's a group of us that makes the gym what it is, and so we're pretty blessed in that way.
Sounds like a ministry in
Yeah,
that way.
we joke and we're like, hey, where else can you get this kind of fellowship? Like you either go to church, and then where else do you get it? You don't even get it at school. There's no relational fellowship. You don't really get it at a bar. Like,
Yeah.
where else can you get it other than church? And the fun thing too is we got all kinds of people that come. So we got a lot of different ethnic backgrounds. We have
Mm-hmm.
white, black, Hispanic, Native, Asian. We have a wide variety, and not only that, we have a lot of different socioeconomic levels that come. So it's just
Mm-hmm.
like we really are like it's a really neat hub where we have all kinds of people, from doctors to I have a homeless guy that's come, like just a wide variety of people who just come together because of the gym, and where they would probably never connect anywhere else.
Yeah.
So it's pretty neat.
It sounds really neat. And you've been here in this area. You grew up in this area. Yes, sir?
Yeah. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So a lot of ties and history of people who've trained. You've trained either beside them or been their trainer at some point.
For sure. Yeah, it's connected in that way and goes way back to training back in the 90s too. So it's yeah, it's fun, and you don't know how you're gonna make a difference, but when you look back, right, it's always the looking back part and
Yes,
see like,
sir.
hey, am I making a difference? How am I doing this? And then those connections come out through where then you have a parent that was like, hey, you used to train me. I'm like, whoa, like, oh man, that's aging me a little bit here,
Yes,
but
sir. Yeah, I hear you though. That's part of the gig. That's part of the gig. So you have nationals coming up, right? Is that for the Taekwondo?
Yep, that's our Taekwondo program. We have eight that are going to be going to nationals, and so from we got two adults, and then the rest are kids. So it's a newer crew, so they're getting their first or second exposure to nationals, and some maybe even their third, but just having some goals to work for, and hey, all this training. Let's see how far we can get. So
Yeah.
it's a good challenge. And so we're the for this group, I'm not heavy on looking at getting that gold, but I'm looking for that experience for them to continue building. And then, hey, when you get really serious about training, let's shoot for that gold. For right now, a couple of them have a good shot. But a couple of them, like they're learning on how much work they got to put in, and as a
Mm-hmm.
coach, I can say, hey, you got to do this much work, and they're not doing it. Well, they're gonna learn a natural consequence lesson, and
That's a
of
piece of
course, I
that.
wish that it wouldn't happen that way, but hey, it's the fight game. If you don't put in the work, you ain't gonna get it too. So
Yeah, that's true. So if I remember correctly, did you compete in wrestling when you were in high school?
yeah, I competed in wrestling, and then so elementary, middle school, high school, and then I helped coach immediately afterwards wrestling, and then I didn't do any wrestling in college. I started a family early, and then
Mm-hmm.
I did approach the college wrestling coach, and I was like, "Hey, do you mind if I join a wrestling team?" And his response was, "Do you know that wrestling's a hard sport?" And I was like, oh, okay, one of these kind of guys. So I went in on a couple open practices, and one of their conference guys that was doing really well. I went in, and I remember I lateral dropped him right in front of the coach as he was riding the bike, and I'm like, yeah, I'm done. Like, you just you're not even motivating me. In fact, you're putting me down. Like, you can't help me, obviously. So I'm out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And I finished up college, and that was about it. So I didn't really get a chance to wrestle in college or anything like that, but I had a good chance experience coaching, assistant varsity coach for one of the local high schools. So that was a great learning time as well.
Yeah. When did you start the martial arts? Were all these different trainings going coinciding?
Wrestling started when I was about 8, and then I did Taekwondo probably around 14. So we had a master instructor, Master Vu, who he actually moved across the street from us, and we didn't have a lot of money, and so there's a couple of martial art programs. I think there was likes, and I think there was a couple other ones, but my mom couldn't afford that, and so he came across the street and he saw these boys just running around being naughty, right? And he
Mm-hmm.
told my mom, "Hey, I'll give you guys a good deal for your sons, and they can come to Taekwondo." And we're like, "Oh, here's an opportunity." And so
Good for you.
took it, ran with it, loved it, and then I got a part-time job, and my entire paycheck was going to my instructor to pay for my brothers and all that. But long story short, it paid off. So it
Yeah.
was a great experience, but it started from an instructor that moved across the street.
Yeah. It seems like you are almost tailor made to be a mixed martial arts coach.
It's kind of when I look back, I'm like, yeah, I could decide these steps, but it was like these pieces just
Opportunity.
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you can choose that. So it was perfect in that way. And we grew up in martial arts a little bit. I had an uncle that practiced kung fu in Laos, and I remember at night sometimes he would make us train, and we'd sit in the horse stance for like 5, 10 minutes. You're like legs are shaking as a kid. Why are we doing these things? And
Yes.
but it was so I had a little bit of foundation starting and piqued my interest, but we didn't have any formal training until the master that moved across the street got us involved.
Excellent. And for what it's worth, what rank are you in Taekwondo, sir?
Fifth degree.
Fifth degree? Yeah.
Yeah,
How
yeah. I'm
how
a little
far?
late testing for my sixth degree. I got to write a paper and get into testing, so I should be testing for that, but that's down the road. Yeah.
Okay,
No.
sir. Yeah, I don't know how many degrees, and depending on the system, and different people do it different ways.
Mhm.
If I remember correctly, I was told by someone that a lot of times when someone comes from another school to you and they have a black belt, whatever, you might retest them a little bit or make sure that things are dialed into your standards.
So we had a black belt that came in from another school,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't make him take off his black belt, right? You earn your black belt,
Yes, sir.
and so, but at the same time, he saw that his way of moving and fighting and all that was way different from how we did, and so I'm like, if you want to progress and move on, you gotta also meet our standards as well.
Mm-hmm.
You met your standards with where you're at, but we also have standards on where we're at, and you got to meet those as well. And then so he did that, and it probably took another year or so, and then he went through and tested and did all the requirements that we needed, and then he was able to get his black belt, and it's a Kukiwan certificate. So I don't, for black belts, I usually like to get it from Korea, right?
Yes, sir.
I don't just make my own house certificates.
Yeah.
Color belts, yeah, but for the black belt, I get a Kukiwan certificate.
Oh, that's amazing. So that was one person who kind of went through that thing.
Yeah, we had a couple that are close that will come. And then when I show them the requirements or our standards, they're like, no, forget this. That's too much work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is our standard. I had a 12-year-old that did it. I have a 25-year-old or a 40-year-old that was really overweight and he worked for it and he did it. So like, I know it's a hard standard, but you got to do it.
Yeah. Yes,
There's no way
sir.
around
Yeah,
it.
that
And
makes
it's
sense.
not something that you just get ready and do overnight. You got to put some work into it. So part of it is we take the test and we break it in two. So part of the first part of the test is a physical. So like
Mm-hmm.
I drop them off at the bottom of a mountain, they run to the top of the tower, then they run to the gym. So it's almost like a little 4.5 mile run,
Mm-hmm.
and then they got to come break some bricks, and then they do the physical part where they do poomse and kicks and brick breaking and self defense and all that kind of stuff. And then the second part of the test is the written part, and then the mental part, and the rehearsing part, and the language and the terminology. And so we break it up. So they have a little time to study, but you can't just do it overnight.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So we teach in the same town. So
Yep.
sometimes I'll hear a story, but I want to ask you because I know there's a telephone game right?
Sure.
And it kind of goes in between there.
Yep.
So yeah, that's really neat that you do that, and it also gives that person an opportunity to maybe dial it in just a little
Sure.
bit, especially as you said, if the standard could be met by a 12 and 13 and also a 40-year-old, right, with some
Yep.
work, then
Yep.
it's not crazy, but at the same
Yep.
time you're asking before they come into your school that they just meet that standard, right?
For sure. For
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
I'm sure they always feel good after they do it.
Absolutely, like they put in the work, right? It's not me, it's them. They know it. Like I give them the sheet of like, hey, here's my expectation. You put in the more you work, the easier it is. And if you
Yeah.
don't want to work for it and you don't pass it, then you got to do it again, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
so, and we just recently had a family that just moved in, and the boy's a brown belt. So he's really close in his last school to be a black belt. And yeah, doing Taekwondo now with us. I would, I would place him probably like a green belt, and I said, are you okay with me putting you as a green belt? Because that's where I think, your movement, your ability, like all that kind of stuff, is probably around there for us, and he was humble enough to say, yeah, that's
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 great.
great. I asked him like, where do you think you are? He's like, I'm probably an orange belt, but I'm like, no, I think you're a little higher than that too, and so, and the great thing was he was good with it, and with that humble spirit, the dad was good with it, and we're just like, hey, we're here to learn too, and that's all a martial art teacher can ask is a student who's willing to learn, right, and empty their cup and be like, hey, just pour it in. Even me, when I go to like different gyms, I like to put on a white belt because
Yes, sir.
I'm here to learn whatever you give me, and I don't need to show you how good I just wanted to learn from you. And sometimes when you wear different color belts, then you kind of got this where they got to act a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
where I like, hey, I just want you, I'm gonna wear my white belt. There's no threat, there's no stress on your part. Just give me your best, and as an instructor, that's what you want in the student.
Yeah, and as a continuing education style person, putting on the white belt several times is a whole different gig and a good experience for us as teachers to go, wow,
Absolutely.
that did, oh, I don't want to, in that type of way for somebody else who's new, right?
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure, for
do,
sure.
do you find, well, first of all, at one point, did you audition for the Ultimate Fighter, sir? That's something that's around the town, so I wanted to ask.
Yeah,
Yeah,
back in the day, yeah, I did. We did fly out to Newark, New Jersey.
nice.
I think they were doing a 135 pound, 145 pound like open call, and so as actually my brother and I, and then we had another guy at the gym that we all flew out to Newark, New Jersey, and we got to try out, and it was in 3 stages. There was probably like 800 or 900 people there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, of lightweights, and you're seeing like, man, I'm looking at some of the people and there's like world champion wrestlers and high level strikers, and you're like, oh man, how am I going to get through this?
For sure.
So they broke it in 3 sessions. The first one was a striking like a mid session.
Mm-hmm.
So if you passed, they moved you on to the next level, whatever they liked, and then if you didn't, they just said, all right, thank you, have a nice day.
Mm-hmm.
So the first level, my brother and I, we made it through. And then like half the group, makes it through ish, and then so we were in the second phase. And the second phase was a different kind of animal. It was grappling, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in the room was those like 5 or 6 tables that were really long, and a Dana White sitting in the middle of the table with like a stack of hundreds on the table. And then this was, hey, you're gonna get a few minutes to grapple, and then every submission you can pull off, here's $100. You know, and I was
Really?
like, oh, cool. I'm like, please, I hope I get somebody easy.
Yeah.
Try to make some money. So, but I got somebody who was pretty tough. We both, fought pretty well. So, neither of us tapped each other. But there was a guy in there who got like 10 submissions. And I'm like, man, he just got $1,000,
In
So
the audition.
interviewed. Yeah, in an audition, that was just nice. And so after that part, and then you went into the final phase, and that part was different, totally different, out of our element. And so that part was meeting with the marketing and the movie production and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to see like, I don't know. I'm guessing what they wanted to see. They were looking at your character. Are you good on camera? And they, when we walked in, they're like, we don't give an F who you are, what you've done, your belt. We don't give an F about anything. It's about how you put on a show. And I just started laughing. I'm like, oh man, I'm out because I don't put on, I'm not that kind of person that's gonna put on that, I'm like, oh man, I'm out, And those only, we made it to that's the final phase. There was probably only like 40 or 50 guys in line from that,
Mm-hmm.
and so we got weeded out of the all the people that were there. We were in the final bunch of kind of just so it was up to the movie production and all that kind of stuff, which were the final group. So it was kind of interesting. I mean, it was a great experience. And so, there was a guy in line. He's like in his jeans with no shirt on and drinking a beer. And he's like, man, I'm going to smash everybody in this house. And, and I was like, I bet you that guy's going to be on the show. And guess what? When they did the show, that dude was on there, like
Ah,
he fit the personality, right? He fit with the criteria of what they wanted. And so, it is what it is, and it was a good experience and got to see Dana White firsthand. But, it was what it is. And, you move forward and you learn from it, right? So,
that's really
but it
cool.
was fun.
Yeah, that is a really cool story. Thank you for sharing that with us. That's something that like I said, I heard, so something I'd
Yeah,
like to
yeah.
ask. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I think a highlight in that trip is our logo, right? We flew to New Jersey and then we came all talking about that faith base and our logo points to that, right? And when I got off the airport and we walked outside, here's a lady smoking a cigarette and then she looks at my shirt and she's like, hey, I know what that means. I'm like, you know what that means? And she points to the man and is like, the man upstairs. I'm like, yeah, so here I am with a random stranger talking about Jesus at an airport, and then I'm like, that's exactly what the logo is meant to do, is to have those conversations about faith and just be like, hey, it just allows us to connect in a way where let's open up as human beings, so and she got the message. So that was great.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So your fight, how long did you fight?
I would say the span of fighting, man, I'm bad with dates. So,
That's okay. We covered
yeah,
that earlier.
I probably looked at just MMA. I probably looked at 7, 8 year window
Okay.
of first to last fight. I did Taekwondo for a lot of years before that, and wrestling, of course, for a lot. But just the MMA part was probably, yeah, I would say about 6 to 8 years
Yeah,
time span. So.
that is really. Did you know while you were fighting that you wanted to be the coach and do that piece?
Well, while I was fighting, it wasn't about coaching, right? I was already coaching wrestling. That was helping me get in shape. And while I was training to fight, like I'm focused on training. Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't have time to help you get better because I'm trying to take that time to make me better. Sounds kind of
Yes.
selfish, but like when you're an athlete and you're trying to be a high level pro, you really got to take that time to, you got rest time, nutrition time, discipline time, training time, running time, workout time. Like there's so many different pieces that time is not your friend, and
Mm-hmm.
plus you only have a span of window to fight in, right? It's not like you have a lot of you can't fight for the rest of your life. You only have you're only young for a little while.
For sure.
Right? So and plus I got a family, plus I'm going to school, plus I'm getting a master's degree, plus so there's all these things pulling at you. But so I'm trying to cram in getting as much fighting as I could, but with quality, not just like I wasn't a guy who just randomly took as many fights as I could, but I wanted to grow every fight.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, at that time I wasn't thinking about coaching, and then the thought was, hey, you know what, I'm running out of training partners, I need training partners. So I'm like, I'm going to start getting some guys and help them to get better so they can help me get better. And the problem with that was now you begin coaching.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So and then so I started helping guys get better, and then they wanted to compete and they want to start doing stuff. Well, now what does that mean for you? That means less time for you because you got to focus on them, and that's where the slowly transition started to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And not that I didn't like coaching because I was already doing that with wrestling, but and then just with other things, life pulling at me on the side, I started to see my fight that part, because I'm fighting higher level guys.
Yes, sir.
I
Yeah.
see that stuff pull away, and I'm like, But probably the my second to last fight was my probably the biggest wake up call that told me that my fight was pretty much going to be over. And so that was probably a sign to me that said my fighting career is going to be close to over. But otherwise, I enjoyed doing as much as I could.
Leave it to a fighter to go. It's the second to the last because you got to go one more, just so you know.
Go one more. Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny how you say that. At Affinity Martial Arts, we do the Kali, the Jeet Kune Do, and the Silat, and it's not super popular, right? So that's how Affinity was born, because you got to find people to train with, right?
Mhm.
And then teaching, right? And then after a while, you see like, wow, this is really making a difference in somebody's life, and it becomes like the coolest thing ever, right? And I was never a competitor or a fighter. Although before I got my Brazilian Jiu Jitsu blue belt, I did like 3 different Brazilian Jiu Jitsu competitions.
Sure.
Yeah, there were like 4 people in each one, Law. I remember telling you
Yeah,
about it when I
nice.
first met you, right?
Nice.
Because being an instructor, when you go, you're not sure. Like, I'm not here to be like, sir, I've done this, 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 and this, but
Mhm.
I've done a couple things. So, yeah, so I was like trying to tell you, and I'll never forget it because I had just
Yeah.
got my blue belt, and then I had knee surgery, and I was sitting
Hmm.
there with you, and I was talking about belts, and you're like, I'm a white belt. And you turned around with this smile on your face like you have right now, and you're like, but I tapped a black belt once, right?
Yeah.
And that was so funny, right?
Yeah.
And you continue to learn since I have met you, and you weren't necessarily, well, you were what some would call a professional white belt, right?
Yeah. Hey,
Okay.
I'm just a purple belt now still, so I'm still learning.
Sir, purple belt's no joke. Purple belt's no joke. I have 3 stripes on my blue, and I'm working on it. You
Yeah,
know what
yeah.
I
I'm not
mean?
in a rush to cram that black belt in, so it's a
Oh, yeah.
it's a it's a great learning experience.
It is, it is. Did you find that pouring yourself into others was just, you had to fight game, you said the second to the last, and then one more. It's really hard for fighters to stop.
Hmm.
Really, really hard, right? Did you really feel that pull as well as to go and serve others because of the
Yeah,
Christian faith in a way?
yeah, for sure. And that after that last fight, it was like, all right, it's time to. There was a span where I'm like, I think I can fight some more. But then we also had the gym started up, and we had a bunch of people that were fighting now. So your dedication on time to them is like, if I'm a good coach,
Yes,
I
sir.
got to dedicate my time to my athletes because they're a reflection on the coach. And one
Mm-hmm.
coach is not going to spend time helping their athletes get better. If that coach is about himself, he shouldn't be coaching, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
it's a tough pill to swallow, but you got to make that switch, and I like when we fight guys who are still coaching and fighting, because then it's like they're still living that double transition of, hey, I'm coaching and I'm fighting. And so I'm like, that's great because your focus is not 100% there. If I know I got a guy who's completely dedicated to training, like that guy, in a sense, to me, has a mental edge because he's completely focused and not sidetracked with the other things that are happening, which is hard to do. Yeah.
And you learn that through experience, though,
For
right?
sure.
Because all of a sudden, there needed to be a shift, and if somebody's whatever, you're going to fight somebody, and you realize he might not run in the morning because he's like got 2 jobs,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so all of a sudden, that makes a lot of sense to go, let me put that in the mental bank.
Yep. Or his runs can't be consistent. He can't push it more. Like there's different things. Like just, and not that you can't be successful, right?
For
Because
sure.
we got guys that are helping out with classes, but not to be overwhelmed with coaching. I mean, like, if you're doing it, great. But if I was running a full-time job coaching and then I'm trying to train too, like not happening. But if it's like a what class here, there, like no worries. But if I'm trying to teach a full schedule, good luck. That's tough.
It, at one time period, we had a fighter I was helping, and then he was with you guys for years, Seth Clements.
Hmm.
And I'll never forget during that time period when I was trying to help him, we started by trading lessons, right? Because I want to
Hmm.
learn jujitsu and
Yeah.
I was going to hold the pads for him. But what I found was that if we just did 4 really good rounds on the pads when he was striking and his footwork and his structure was good, The minute that he put the pads on, all that went out the window. So it felt like we just did 15 minutes and then traded it in for 15 minutes of bad work. And so I ended up being like, no, how about you teach me after you get done with the fight?
For sure.
Right? Because I was already intimidated. I don't know anything about that world. And it's not my gig. I'm a martial arts teacher. I'm a college JKD man. I know what I know. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's fascinating you say that because I tell that story to this day that because we do a lot of focus mitt training. Right?
Sure.
And so if I'm holding the mitts for you, I can also have a stance, a structure, and be aware of my body as opposed to now I'm doing the Muhammad Ali and I'm shuffling, right? Like somebody, no, you saw that in the back of the UFC on Saturday, right? Don't do that because you still want to stay here. Make
For
sense?
sure. Yeah, absolutely. And part of it is the fighter too, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
remember Seth too. He was going to Minnesota and training with
Yes, sir. Everybody.
a high level team in Minnesota, and he spent months there and he came back and I'm like, and then as I was striking with him, I'm like, what's going on here? Like, the problem I think wasn't the different people that were working with him, is him evolving that game,
For sure.
and utilizing those pieces to grow. So like you were talking about hitting mitts, and then next thing you know, like, why is it all out the window? And that's a big piece in fighting, is being able to adapt to make what you're doing work,
Yes, sir.
right? And so, and that's part of that is athlete. Part of that is being able to coach the athlete to help get there. And I don't know, maybe I was young back then too as a coach and trying to just help them that. But I remember telling them like, dude, you spent all that time there. You haven't changed your striking. Like, come on, man. That's a lot of money and time. And for what, and
Yeah.
so you got to allow it to change you as well. It's like giving somebody the Bible and giving them a good word, and then they're like, oh, that sounds good, and then they just leave it on the side, like it didn't do anything. Like, if your training doesn't help change you and change the way you fight, then what good is it, right?
Very true. Very absolutely. I just thought it was fascinating because for me, I don't have as much experience in that coaching realm, right?
Sure,
But
but
for
you read it though. You read it right on though.
like, yeah, like I don't think this is good. 15 minutes good, 15 minutes bad. How about we take away the 15 minutes bad, right?
Mhm. Yeah, for sure.
And that was really cool. By the way, one of my formable moments really here in Wausau is later on uh, when the late Scott was fighting and you had me walk out with your team. And I was like, dude, this isn't my world. And you turn around at me and you smiled. He goes, it's your world now, and shrugged. Right. And I was like, that meant a lot to me because it really is your world. And I want to dabble because I want the full martial arts experience for my students as best I can. Right.
Sure,
And
absolutely.
that sometimes those little experiences are really, really, really cool for, well, they helped in my development and I appreciate it, as did coming in for spiritual development.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I think those experiences, right, of
Yeah.
just, I like it when I'm not sure about something and somebody says, hey, man, give it a try, and just that experience alone can help you grow in so many different ways. Not that has to be my world, right? But just to be able to get a taste of it and be like, oh, okay, this is something I like. You can have more of it. Or, you know what, I felt it. That's great, but I like what I'm doing. So there's nothing wrong with that. But that challenge of, and even just being able to taste the feeling and seeing all that in the back, and like there's a lot of things that happen in the background that people don't see. But being able to see it and feel it and just like, it's a whole different experience, right?
Yeah.
Different from watching a fight on TV versus being in the background.
Sure. It's a very unique experience, and a lot of instructors in the martial arts, especially if we teach something traditional or whatever, we shy away from that. But if we do our jobs, then we should learn from competitive martial arts, right? And be able to adapt and bring those things and all that stuff, and still might say, hey, I started this when I'm 40. There's going to be no fighting coming out of me.
Yeah.
However, I want to be able to know what I do is structurally sound,
Mhm.
in such a way.
Well, and I think that's what it's about, and that's why I like competition. Is it keeps my techniques sharp, right?
Hmm.
Because it has to work. If it doesn't work in competition, why am I wasting time teaching it? Because it's not really that effective. I mean, it looks pretty or whatever, or it looks good when we do it slow motion, or if a person is throwing exactly what I want them to do, but what happens in the raw part of competition where there are no, like, hey, there's no plan, I don't know what the person's going to do and I have to be able to
For
react,
sure.
like, how do I do? And so I think, in those moments that helps tighten up the technique. And so for me, like, how does that look boxing wise? How does that look in MMA? How does that look in Taekwondo? And so we got to use the best techniques to keep it sharp competitively, because if we don't and we don't adapt, then we're in trouble. But that doesn't always translate to good self-defense. It
Sure.
translates to good competition. But even a good martial artist has a better chance to defend themselves than somebody who doesn't know anything,
Oh, yes,
right?
sir. Yeah. Absolutely. And, we shouldn't really, well, except for you guys, I always say we're like 1% of the world that we even do martial arts at all. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, and guys, usually MMA guys and things like that, y'all are out creating problems in the world too often because you're saving yourself because there's 15 minutes of complete havoc you're signed up for at some point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we don't always have to train, with the idea it's going to be against a skilled martial artist. But anyway, that's the crazy train on my end. I just pew, 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 go around. So, spiritual development, brother.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see that reflect with some of your fighters, right?
Sure.
That are engaging in that spiritual piece. Not saying that the other ones aren't, or I'm not trying, or whatever that is. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, do you see how that helps the heart of a fighter?
Yeah, and all that, right? And it's hard for me to see the inside of their heart and what they're hungry for. But on the outside first, which is in a sense not the most important part, but it's seen. And so we're called to be salt and light. So you have to be seen in what you do. You got to be different, right? Salt
Mm-hmm.
is different from sugar, right? And the light is different from
Yes,
darkness.
sir.
So when our people compete, I've gotten a lot of different, like, you know messages from promoters and other coaches, and be like, dude, you guys are different. Your team is different. You guys behave different. You act different. Like, we love having you guys. And so it's really cool. I'm like, well, we're no different from anybody else in a sense, right? Like, we're here to fight, but then how the guys, how the team, how the students conduct themselves is different. And so, and other people see that, and that's perfect. That's exactly what we want the gym to be able to do. Is we're different, and not that we're bragging or saying we're going to beat your, like, we go and there's other gyms that the kids are like, we're going to beat your face in and telling us this kind of stuff, and we're like, oh, okay, like, you might be from one of those Krav Maga, one of those what, Cobra Kai
The
schools,
Cobra Kai,
yeah,
sweep the
yeah,
leg.
yeah, exactly. No mercy, right? But we get the opposite, where a lot of people really enjoy having us, and actually congratulate on our students on how, even win or lose, they're really good students, and their demeanor and personality and how they treat and talk to people. It's neat. So it does come out in a lot of different ways. Whether it's religious or not is another, but they do, like, change how they behave, right? And so even at our gym, if people, they swear, they get push-ups, so they know, like, hey, I got to control my tongue in the gym here, and everybody swears so freely now that nobody really has a filter until they come to the gym, right? And it's like, oh, you better catch on fast, or you're gonna be doing a lot of push-ups. So we stole the line: you're either gonna get stronger or you're gonna get smarter, or both.
Yeah.
you
Hopefully
know
both. Hopefully
yeah, yeah,
both.
for sure. But we do see the spiritual part growing in different people too, and the heart to help different people spiritually. We get to have a lot of really good conversations with people, where they're, when they're going through some tough times, and they see the openness to share what's going on. And so we get to speak truth and light into some of the things that are going on in life. And yeah, so you get to see the impact that makes in people. And so yeah, it's more than just the punches and kicks, but we do see those transformations happen.
Yeah. That's what it's all about, isn't it, sir?
Yeah, for sure. That's where, like, I'm a poor instructor, but if you look at, like, storing heavenly treasures in things that moth and rust can't destroy, but I'm looking at, if God says, hey, what did you do? I'm like, I tried to help people, like, you would know better than I do, right? But I'm trying to help people and be there for people. And you can't, it's hard to measure that, right? You don't know the impact you've had on people. Like, yeah, like, you're talking about your experience coming to the gym for, like, and I'm bad. I'm like, I remember some of the conversation, but you're probably like, I'm moving, like, but I don't remember those interactions.
For
And
sure.
so But you do the best you can in the moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then and hopefully like you do things right, but and you just keep doing that. Yeah, you just keep doing the next right thing.
That's hard, right? No wonder you don't
Yeah,
remember things, brother. Stay in the
yeah.
moment sometimes, right?
Mhm.
Then you're moving on to the next thing,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, and so when you work with so many different people, I can't just sit there and just dwell in one spot, right? It's constantly like pulling different directions for different things, and so, but that's the great thing, though. The bad thing is you can't really go deep with someone for a long, long time, but at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, I don't think you need me to do that, right? I think you need me for the moment, and then you move on, right? Because I'm not the one living your life, you are, right? So you get what you need from me. It's like a doctor. You get what you need, and the doctor doesn't say, "Oh,
Yeah.
you got to stay with me the rest of your life." The doctor says, "Here you go. You're ready. Go." And that's as martial arts instructors, as coaches, as mentoring people, even in walking in with Christ, is let me help you. And then if you need something, let me know. But I'm not walking. You got to walk it too. I'm by you. Or I'm a phone call away. I can walk through some of it with you,
Yeah.
but you gotta still do it, right?
And that's what forges us into who we are anyway, right? But those
Absolutely.
small little interactions, I was telling my wife the other day, she also helps me teach that sometimes the small little interactions we don't know what fruit will come out of that later, and it might
Mhm.
not be that we have a student for life. It might just be a 6 week program, but they really needed some type, whatever it is, they're leaving, and they got something out of it, right? And maybe
Yeah.
it'll bear
Yeah.
fruit later and maybe not.
Yeah, one things I tell my wife and some of the guys at the gym. I believe God sends people through our doors. Everyone comes to the doors for a certain reason. We don't
Mm-hmm.
advertise. So like people look, but people come for
Yeah.
whatever it is they're looking for. And I believe God sends everybody in there for a certain reason, for a different time in their life, for
Mm-hmm.
whatever they need. And then once they get what they need, then they can be gone. Or if they want to be a long-term student, that's great. But they're getting something. And even those kind of stories of the transformations of people like changing their lives around, like we had a lady one, she was in a really hard relationship, and a lot of bad things happened, and end up getting in a divorce, and just down in life and not confident, and came to us, and we started like doing taekwondo and started like changing things around and building confidence. And then she started doing other things, and then she loved doing what she's doing now, and now she's like flying and doing all kinds of fun stuff with her life. And where she was in a down period in her life,
Mm-hmm.
probably just spent some time with us for a little bit, and then able to rechange and reshape the way she looked at life, and was able to like now doing great things, and enjoying life again. And that's the beauty of it. And I don't have to say, what, like she needs to be here. No, like she was here at the moment, changed her life, and
Yeah.
now she's, as far as I know, living a better life, right? And so that's great. That's what it's about.
That is what it's about. Sir, one of the things I like to ask my guests is if you had somebody that maybe was going to start martial arts, or in this case, especially competitive martial sport, okay? And they were
Mhm.
going to start, and you could tell them like a piece of advice that they could start within 24 hours, something simple, right? Sometimes when we're looking at it, we're looking at the big picture, and you want to know
Mhm.
exactly how the knee goes and how this goes, right?
Mhm.
But maybe they're not ready for that. But they could do this within 24 hours. Does that make sense, sir?
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What there's so many different pieces, but the one thing that could help somebody in the next 24 hours, um, I would probably say that they have to be willing to take their passion to serve somebody else.
Mm,
So if you love what you do, and how can you teach somebody else to love what you do?
yeah.
And are you willing to stick with it through the ups and downs with that? Because it's your passion, and then you got to be able to love it, and not only that, you got to be able to teach somebody else to love it. And with that, you can't force anybody. So you got to love it enough where your passion rubs off on people, and they love it because you love it, and then they love it on their own, and it's not even yours anymore, right? But your passion can be contagious. And so I think you got to make sure you really love it. It's not even about the money. It's about, hey, I want to help somebody with a skill that I have. It could be computers, it could be martial arts, it could be, but I love this thing and I want to use that to help somebody. And if that's your spirit, you're going to be awesome at it, and maybe it's just a couple people, maybe it's a lot of people, but if it's your passion, you're not going to hate it. And when you can help somebody, it's more fulfilling. So it's I would say make sure that it is a passion and you're not doing it for fame or fortune, but make sure it's something that you really love. And then make sure your heart is also that you're willing to serve and help people through it. And if you're willing to do those, you'll be contagious and people will come to you.
That's wonderful. I really, really appreciate that. It's such good advice. Such good advice.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people do things and they kind of like, they go through the motion, or they kind of like fake doing some of the things, and they don't really care, or they're looking at it from other pieces. But if you're genuine about it, and you love Kali, and you love Jeet Kune Do, and you love spreading that, like that, you can't help but if you're around you're gonna get that.
End up with some sticks in your hands. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Yeah. That's how it's going to
go. That's what I was going to ask you, when we're done, is I'm going to ask, hey, if you want to do like a Cali seminar, we can pick a day down the road here. Yeah. I'd love to. I was supposed to go to do a Cali seminar, and then turned into a Krav Maga seminar. I'm like, oh man, I wanted to work some sticks,
Yeah.
So yeah, that'd be cool down the road to have you do like a seminar, and we could get people to come in and just do a fun seminar. So that'd be
That's
fun.
Cool. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I didn't know that you were interested. Anyway, yes, I'm going to go off on a tangent now. That's what I love to do. So we'll have to talk about it afterwards, because I want to keep this about the rising sun.
Yeah.
Is there anyone that you could recommend for the show that has a good story, or someone that you could think that might want to come talk to us?
Oh, what are you only sticking with the martial art theme, or are you?
Yeah, for right now. Yeah, right now, martial artists.
Sure.
And that's okay.
Yeah, we got obviously I just know mostly my students, and then other. Oh, you know what? There's a guy, Dave Wants. He teaches personal defense.
Yeah.
Out of DC Everest High School.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you've come across with him, but he gets to live teaching martial arts as a PE teacher for high school. I mean, how cool of a job is that, right?
Yeah.
So so he does that. He'd be a fun one to talk to. He coached wrestling. I mean, he coached football and track, stuff like that. And so he'd be a fun one.
I think that's great. I will reach out to him. I've always wanted to talk to him. I thought it was absolutely fascinating when I moved to Wausau, Wisconsin, that you could learn martial arts in the school system, right? And I just thought that was absolutely fascinating. So that did become my dream job. At least it's probably everybody's dream job at that point. You know what I mean? That's amazing.
For sure. So I would, yeah. I mean, yeah. He's got a fun story with that, and he even fought an MMA match back in the day too. So he's got an experience to share with that, and he could, yeah. So he'd be one. You could also look at maybe like even Jason Mentz, another coach in Stevens Point.
Yeah.
Currently going through a Muay Thai program and at an MMA school. Ben Price runs a jiu-jitsu school down in Stevens Point too. So just some different cool guys, but local fighters, we got a bunch too that can share stories. So yeah, there's a bunch.
Yeah, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, because you got a bunch of fighters there, right?
Yeah,
for sure. And you got all kinds of different people. I had a great conversation with Kyle.
Yeah.
That was great.
I mean, Kyle's got a great story. Terrence has a great story, just, his background. Scott's a pretty cool guy with the discipline with his background. We got guys that transform their whole life around, like one of our boxers, Jeremy. He's like a 45-year-old guy. He's 2-0 in boxing now.
Nice.
And he brought his kids to do boxing, and now he's changing he's running. You look at his picture of him changing his weight and his body and his training, and he's totally changed his life around and his family's life around. And so just a lot of really neat stories that, of people just through martial arts have changed, so yeah, there's more.
Yeah, there definitely is more. Well, Master Thao, thank you so much for coming on the FormAble Podcast and sharing part of your story, your experience, your strength, your hope, all that good stuff. And thank you for the small interactions you've had with me that left an impression on me. And I'll, I'll tell you a funny story at the end I never got to tell you. So once there was someone that was in Wausau, Wisconsin, and they were checking out the different gyms, and they had come to see, and they really not necessarily like what we were doing,
Mm-hmm.
and they were a little arrogant, little whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and asked when they were going to spar, and at that time. Not sparring, I had some medical stuff going on, bunch of beginners, whatever. Grab two sticks. I'm going to teach you the art, and then we're going to get to where it goes. And well, he had attended your school very, very, and I'm sure he was very arrogant. He got punched in the face one time. He came back to me on Monday, and he was a lot easier to deal with, to be honestly. And yeah, and when he had said like he got punched in the face, can you believe that? I was like, oh my gosh, I spent 20 minutes wanting to punch you in the face, like but it was just so much, and not once in my mind did I think it's an MMA gym and he's getting beaten up or whatever. I'm just sure whatever it was,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
and the character that you're building over there helps this community, and just thank
I
you. It's
appreciate
very,
that.
very cool. And
Yeah,
we're going to have you back on the show at some point, maybe after nationals or after an event where you can come in and talk about your fighters and the
sure.
successes that they're having. Sound like fun?
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you. Well, and thanks for what you do. I mean, we all make an impact with our
Yes, sir.
our sphere circle, and so keep doing what you're doing, and
Thank you.
God bless you and your process and things you're doing too. So keep it up.
Yeah, we're going to work on it. All
Yeah,
right,
for
this
sure.
is Jamie Sparling, head instructor, Affinity Martial Arts and Wellness, as well as Master Law Tao, Rising Sun, SONMOA, in Wausau, Wisconsin, on the Formable Podcast. Have a good day. Thank you for spending some time with us.
Thank you, sir. Have a good one.